Hello and welcome back to the Birdcage. I'm Jack Kenna, joined alongside Charlie Krupski to recap Kansas versus Iowa State. The game happened last night, Charlie. The Jayhawks fell 74-57 in Ames. What were your thoughts about the game, your initial thoughts about that one?
My initial thoughts about the game. Well, first of all, thank you for having me back on, Mr. Kenna.
Oh, of course.
Um, my initial thoughts were the final score does not do justice to what that game was. Kansas was in that game for 37 minutes
Yeah,
and they just lost it at the end. They fell apart.
100%.
Um, there were some questionable lineups as we were touching on before we got in here,
Mm.
but I think that they played all right. I mean, in the grand scheme of things, it's the number two team in the country at home. Like
Yeah,
their only loss of the year was to the number one team, Auburn, but at like a buzzer beater tip in
yeah.
on a neutral court. And so it's not the end of the world, in my opinion. There's definitely some question marks and things that left me scratching my head. And it was also just one of those games where, like, Curtis Jones pulled up from the
The
logo
logo.
and hit it at the end of the half for just and there was no shot it wasn't going in. And it was just one of those games.
It was one of those games. I was watching the game with a buddy of ours, Sam Winton, who has actually been on this show before. And Iowa State got the ball. Kansas was, I think at this point, down seven with like 40 seconds to go in the half. And he said, "Okay, well the Jayhawks will go into the half down 10." Sure enough, Curtis Jones, crazy three-pointer. We go to the half down 10. It was one of those games where Kansas really played good enough to win. In a road environment, held the home team to shoot 40% from the field. Now they did shoot over 60% from three, which is just something that's going to be hard to get any wins when teams are that hot. But defensively, Kansas was in the game. They were down eight, they were down six, got it to 4-5, but it till the end, it never really looked like he was really out of the question.
I'd say that they didn't play good enough to win, but the effort was there to keep it close. I mean, I'm looking at the box right now. Their field goals were identical. They both shot 24 for 59. Um, except Iowa State doubled up our three-point percentage, 31 to 62%. Um, and shot 14 more free throws than us and shot a 72% free throw rate, which is not good by any means,
Nope.
except we shot 36%. So again, they literally doubled us up exactly in three-point percentage and free throw percentage. And the issue for me was the turnovers. We turned it over 17
17
times,
times.
and they scored 23 points off of those turnovers. And they out rebounded us. Like, if you look at the box score, you look at the initials, okay, our field goal percentage were the same, but they shot better from three. They shot more free throws. They shot better from the free throw line. They scored more off turnovers. They out rebounded us. They had 16 second chance points to our five. And the only thing I'd say we were good with was we outblocked them. We outblocked them 10 to 4.
I mean, they won every single 50-50 ball. And Bill Self said it in a press conference earlier this year. That's something that you got to do. When they lost their first game at Creighton, Bill Self in the post game said, you got to win 70% of the 50-50 balls. He said, that's such an important statistic because it gives you opportunities to create second chance points. And they didn't do it. And Iowa State is a terrific team, but you gotta get a few of those if you want the game to go your way, especially playing in an environment like Hilton. Iowa State is the best team Kansas will see all year, and I'm pretty comfortable saying that. And we get a chance against them at home. I'm pretty sure. So it's
Yep.
not the end of the
February
world.
3rd.
It's not the end of the world, but it was kind of upsetting towards the end of that game. Hunter Dickinson didn't get a free throw rebound. They get a second chance point, kick out three-pointer. That's the ball game. And it was one of those moments where you're kind of watching it and you're just like, the effort just wasn't there on that play particularly. But throughout the entire game, there were kind of moments like that.
I'd say that it's frustrating because Iowa State, I feel like also did not play good enough to win. And
Hmm.
so that's the opportunity that you have to take to win that game. And now I'm scared of like, okay, if we couldn't beat them when they weren't playing well, what's going to happen when they're hot and
Yeah.
they're fully healthy and all that? I'd say the game really, well, first of all, DeJuan Harris shooting what, 1 of 5 on free throws?
Yeah, not a
Never
good game for
happens.
Juwan. One
That
of
never
six.
happens. 1 of 6, like what's happening? But I'd say the game really, it felt like it was gonna like they had this stretch here from the 7 minute mark to the 5:30 mark where they cut the lead from 12 to 5, and Flory had an and one like layup dunk. There was a timeout um on the floor. They came back from the break. Flory missed the free throw. Store grabbed the rebound. Zeke missed a three. DeJuan grabbed a rebound. Rylan missed a three. And then finally Iowa State got the ball back, went down the floor, and then Flory fouled them on the shot.
It was one of those
And
plays. That's a game-changing play.
that was the game for me.
We just did not get the ball to go in the hoop. Good looks too. Just didn't fall.
Especially because you feel like, okay, Flory missed the free throw or whatever. Oh, we got an offensive rebound. Then we missed two threes that could have cut it to 2 points, and instead they go the other way. They get a free throw, they make that, and then they miss the free throw. They miss the Then we don't score. They miss another free throw, but they get the offensive rebound and then hit the 3-pointer to
Yeah.
push it back up to 9.
Because the shooters on that shot when Kansas got the rebounds were Mayo and Griffin,
Hmm.
who are Kansas's best shooters. And so you got good looks from your best shooters and they just didn't go.
Yeah, it was just in that moment I was like, okay, that's the game right there. Even though there's 4 minutes left and they cut it back down to 8, I was like, that's it.
Yeah. I mean, DeJuan Harris just did not have a very good game. Efficient game. 1 for 6 at the foul line, and then I'm pretty sure he shot 3 of 6 from the field. He had a
Three
few
of
good
six, yep.
floaters in there, but DeJuan Harris just offensively is not the player that he was even last year necessarily. And I feel like he's getting decent looks and he just can't really find a rhythm. There's a lot of people on Twitter that are calling for Shaquille Moore to be our starting one and DeJuan to kind of come off the bench, and I just don't get it. Kansas Twitter is absurd. What's the Kansas record now?
They have 4 left. They're 12-4
They're 12-4. That's still better than 80% of the country.
with losses to on the road at the number 2 team in the country, on the road at a very very good Creighton team, and on the road at a very good Mizzou team.
A Mizzou team that literally got their second top five win on the road at Florida. So you're sitting there and you're like, what? And people on Twitter were calling for Bill Self to like step down. Like it's
It's
ridiculous behavior. It is ridiculous behavior. I feel like as a Kansas fan, you can be upset about the game because Iowa State didn't play their best and the game was within reach. Granted, Kansas didn't play their best either, but the game was within reach. And you had a few plays to make something happen and it just didn't go your way. But let's be a realist here. Neither of us thought Kansas was going to win this game anyways. So
no.
it was one of those games where you're like, that's fine. You lose a game you were maybe supposed to lose. So it's not the end of the world, that's for sure.
I will say I think that the response to this game from what I've seen has been better It's still not great. I still do not like our fan base when it comes to losing, but it's been better because people have been like, okay, let's take a deep breath. It's Iowa State at home. And it's not just like, it's a road game. Like Hilton is hard to play in.
Yeah.
Like it is one of the
The
hardest road
toughest
environments.
environments.
Yeah. Like it's not like you're going to play, oh, okay, Gonzaga is the number two team in the country. Let's go to Spokane and we're going to play Gonzaga, where the home isn't as big of a factor. Like Iowa State, they're loud. And we touched on it earlier, but it just felt like everything was not going their way. There's so many times where it was like, okay, Iowa State missed their shot. Uh-oh, it deflected off of Hunter on the rebound. It deflected off of Zeke. He passes it out, but like everybody's just like, there's just so much chaos going on. And like Shaquille Moore's trying to dribble it and he has like a spin move, but it somehow like kicks free. And then everybody's like, and it somehow always ended up in Iowa State's hands.
A lot of
And
turnovers.
that's something that I think you can attribute to the home environment a little bit. Um, but also Bill Self said in the post-game press conference, he said it after all these other losses too. He said it wasn't an effort thing. The guys played hard. They really went out there and they fought, but it was about not respecting how difficult the environment was going to be and how good of a team that was. And the Bill Self slander, um, I trust in Bill Self a lot. I love to hear him talk. He knows basketball so well. There were definitely some question marks about making adjustments and playing guys certain minutes.
I think it is time where we can sit here and respectfully question the I think he's the greatest college basketball coach of all time. I know there's a lot of debate. I know he's definitely up there. But we can sit here as fans and as people who talk about basketball and kind of question what he was thinking because KJ Adams gets hurt in the second half and KJ didn't have a blistering game to begin with. I mean, he missed plenty of shots that usually KJ either A makes or B gets fouled on. He shot 1 for 5 from the field. Finished the game with 4 points. Like 6 rebounds, yes, he's been rebounding a little better. 4 assists, he does a little bit of everything, but I think it is okay to question a little bit of why does KJ Adams get so many minutes?
KJ was not the issue for me. And I know we talked about this last time that a lot of Kansas fans are like, what does he do? He had 6 rebounds and 4 assists, I think, before he got hurt in the first half. And like he had that at halftime and then he got hurt. Um, and I think that he wasn't feeling his best. And like I'm not here to make excuses for him, but I don't think KJ is the biggest issue right now. Um, Hunter went 3 of 10 shooting and only had 8 rebounds and had four
And
fouls
had
and
four
four
fouls.
and
So
four
did Flory.
turnovers.
So did Flory. Let's make like there's a reason why Flory and Hunter couldn't play a lot together, and it was foul trouble.
Um, and I still think Hunter Dickinson is the key to this team and really, really good, but they locked him up well, so you got to turn somewhere else. Um, Flory only had 11 minutes. Like, granted, he had 4 fouls, but you got to get him out there. And then I was really, really confused with, namely, the guard play. And I talked about this last time too. Bill Self will start Shaquille Moore. He'll sit him for 10 minutes. He'll let him play the final 4 minutes of the half, and then he won't start the second half, and then he'll come in like here and there. And it doesn't make sense to me because they put Diggy out there, and I'm a big Diggy believer, but he clearly did not have it last night. Um,
Oh,
he had a turnover and 1 rebound and 0 for 1 from the field, and he was a traffic cone basically.
yeah.
Um, and Rylan only played 19 minutes yesterday,
That's what confuses me
and
because
like
Byron Griffin didn't come in until about 7, 8 minutes left in the second half. Like he had his warm up on,
yeah,
and like how do you expect a shooter who has been streaky this year? to come into the game when he's been sitting for 20 plus minutes and make a contribution. I feel like that's unfair for a shooter of Rylan Griffin's caliber.
I also don't like how Bill obviously strayed away from Rylan lately, and it's been working out in the starting lineup. But he's been playing him as like the first guy off the bench. And I don't think Rylan got into the game until about the 13-minute mark in the first half. And then he played about, I don't know, 6 minutes and then
Mhm.
sat for the rest of the half. And then, like you said, sat for the first 10 minutes of the second half.
Yeah,
And so it just didn't make any sense to me because he's been the guy that's been stretching the floor and allowing, like, it might not show up in the box score, but he's doing what he needs to do. He's stretching the floor, he's pulling defenders out, he's doing all this. And so I just don't understand when things aren't going offensively, why you don't try and get Rylan in there, and instead you throw
space
Shaquille Moore
everything
back in
out.
there, or you throw Diggy Coit back in there. And I also didn't like AJ Store's play, but
Yeah, let's talk about Store real quick. 10 minutes, 5 points.
four
Poor
fouls.
defense. Poor defense from AJ Store. He's not feeling it. I think he's almost upset. I think there's a lot of tension between Self and Store right now. And I think they're just butting heads, really. And I don't know what's going on because Store coming into the year, you would have thought AJ Store was going to be our leading scorer. And it's just like you're sitting there and you're like, he's making no impact.
And the only reason he was in was because Hunter and KJ and Flory were all in foul trouble.
Yeah.
And I disagree. I don't think he played bad defense. I think he played really actually strong defense until he tried to do too much and then he fouled guys.
Some of his fouls I don't think were really fouls.
No, but like I remember a play where he had a great help side defense and he like slid in to stop the ISU like big man from attacking the paint, and then he ended up poking the ball free and trapping the guy in the corner, and it was just great defense. And then he took it a step further and tried to like steal it again and ended up bumping him and got called for a foul.
On the baseline.
Yep.
Yep, I remember the exact same one. That was his fourth foul, I think.
I think it was his third, and then he got a fourth right after that.
Yeah, it was crazy, but I know exactly
But
what you're talking about.
like it's good defense until he takes it too far. And it's what I said yesterday or 2 days ago or whatever about he's trying to do so much because he wants the opportunity that he's overextending himself. He's over trying like he tried to dribble through three guys in the paint yesterday to attack the rim. And yes, he drew the foul, but it was a ticky-tack foul that probably shouldn't have been called. And instead it's
Iowa
like, why are
State
you
fans
not
didn't
kicking it
like
out?
it. Yeah. No, you hit it on the head. He's trying to do too much because he doesn't get many minutes, and he wants to show Bill Self that he deserves to play on this team. But he's being silly. He's silly fouls, silly decision making because he wants to make an impact. When in reality, if he slows down, makes the right play, truly it helps everyone else on the floor, and he'll stay out there more. You got to build up self confidence because right now, self confidence in AJ Store is pretty low. I mean, I'd have to go back, but he played 10 minutes this game. And I know he hasn't been getting a whole lot of minutes recently. So it's one of those things where you have to find a way to make an impact. Like he has 10 minutes at Iowa State, 10 minutes at Cincinnati, 3 minutes against Arizona State, 16 minutes at UCF, 15 minutes at West Virginia in a game he started. 15 minutes in a game you started.
Yeah. I think he just needs a full reset. And I don't know what it is, but Bill's got to either like sit him a game, just say, "Hey, AJ, we we respect the hustle. We know you're trying. I see that it's worth it, but you're trying to do too much. We need you to just calm down. All right. Take a reset, right? Take a breather.
Mm-hmm.
We're gonna stay in practice. We're gonna try and work some things out and just give him a little bit of a break and then see if he can reset and whatnot." I I don't know that Bill Self will do that. Um, But I know that Bill's been trying to get Rylan and AJ involved in practice more and more because he keep every single press conference, it's, hey, how are AJ and Rylan doing? You know, they're getting better, they're getting better. I just want to hear the question, hey, how is AJ doing? Right? What's going on? What's in his head? Like, and just maybe just take him aside in practice and just have him work one on one with someone and say, hey, AJ, and you know, I'm trying to think here. AJ and Zeke, go over there. You're gonna work one on one, just attacking the rim, defending the rim, just work with each other and just see what happens and see if he can just get that flow back, get some competitive juices going, and just see what happens. But something needs to change.
Yeah, AJ Storr hasn't played more than 20 minutes since December 4th. He played 20 minutes against Brown on the 22nd, but that he played 28 minutes against Creighton, and that is the last time he's played over 20 minutes.
And if you look at all those games he's playing big in, they're blowouts. And he's coming in late in the game and getting minutes. UCF blowout came in late in the game. Brown blowout came in late in the game. Creighton, it was probably out of hand at that point, and they threw him in there. Like they're giving him opportunities, but it's not when it matters, and I think that's fine. Just something has to change.
He played 28 minutes against Duke, but foul trouble. Hunter got kicked out. Flory had a few fouls. It it's one of those games where he hasn't really necessarily gotten a lot of minutes and a lot of opportunity to make an impact. But he's just, you can't deny it. He's had a very slow start to the season. And he has a chance to fix it and figure it out. And I feel like he had moments yesterday where he looked pretty good. But we need to see an AJ Storr. We need to see something crazy from AJ Storr right now because I don't know how much belief Kansas fans have in his ability to be a Kansas Jayhawk and play on this kind of team. Now, something that really confused me was so far this year, Diggy Coit has been not a phenomenal piece, right? He's had a few great games, but he has been a contributor in almost every game where he's gotten in and gotten some minutes. But definitely his minutes have been dwindling, which I feel like is just Bill Self coming to the realization Diggy Coit really is not the best option off the bench when you have guys like Rylan Griffin and now Flory's kind of flourishing. You got to get those guys in. But we saw Keith Passmore yesterday, and we saw Passmore play actually more minutes than Diggy Coit. Why do you think that was? First of all, when you had another guard with more experience who could probably provide a little more offensively, only getting 6 minutes.
I will say I think that the lack of Coit's minutes. I'm a big Diggy believer. Um, I think that he is a spark plug, but I think that with Shaquille Moore being healthy, they're basically the same player. Except Shaq is probably a little more level-headed and isn't as sporadic, I'd say. Diggy will get out there and he'll shoot from wherever. He'll shoot over two guys and
He
he'll get
doesn't
his
need a
ass.
warm up.
No. And so I think Shaq's a little bit more of a team player. Um, but I think Diggy is also a spark plug guy. So I think his minutes have dwindled because Shaq's been healthy.
Yeah.
I will say Raquise Passmore is probably my favorite Jayhawk. So this is going to be a little bit biased, but I thought he played pretty well last night.
So did I.
If you look at the stats, he did nothing. I mean,
Yeah.
no shots, no assists. He had one rebound, but he didn't turn it over.
Yeah.
He didn't commit a foul, and I think he plays a little bit passive for my liking, but
Surely
he was
you would think that a freshman playing Kansas basketball would be a little passive on the floor when you got people like Dewan and Hunter and KJ on the floor. He's been doing it for 4 or 5 years, but
right.
I feel like overall he had pretty solid minutes.
He did. He had 7 minutes. He played well defensively. Sometimes he got down in like the low block and like was playing like the five. I think they had Shaq, Dewan, Zeke, Rakis, and like their five was like Rylan or AJ. And Rakis was down in the the paint, like guarding these huge guys. And I think he had like like a strip on one of them when they were going up for like a dunk. And I was like, okay, I guess that works. But I think he still looked a little bit lost. I think he's still adjusting, and I think that's why Bill Self put him out there. So, I think
Hmm.
Passmore is a big part of the future at Kansas. I think he'll stay for a while, and I think he will be the next DeJuan Harris. Um,
Yeah.
and I know it's tough because, they have so much talent coming in, but I think just getting him experience in these big games was probably the focus,
Yeah.
especially with foul trouble. And it's like, okay, let's try and just try something. Somebody get out there. Rakis, go help out there. And I mean, we talked about it earlier. Bill Self talks about, hey, you got to win the 50-50 balls. You got to get your hands on the balls. And earlier in the game against or earlier in the year, he played NC State at home. And I asked Bill Self, hey, what did you think about Rakis's minutes? Because he got in there and he was like, I mean, he had his hands on every single ball. He was flying all over the court. And so he likes the effort, he likes the intensity. And maybe it's just try to get some of those loose balls.
Yeah. I was really excited to see Marquise Passmore check in because in these Big 12 games, you really don't know how much time certain players will get, and he's one of those players. And I think he did a very good job. Now, when it comes to Kansas's future, they have Darren Peterson coming in, who's supposedly one of the best high school players in his class. And I'm now, since I'm older than these guys, I really don't believe the hype. I need to see it before I believe it. I think he's going to be a great Jayhawk, but I want to see him put on something before we start calling him some of the best players in the class. But in terms of the future, I really hope he stays. And I really hope Jamari McDowell stays too. Because last year, Jamari, I felt, or was like one of my favorite players on the team. Just because he reminded me a lot of myself in high school, where I'd go in and I would play a minute or two and I would make a mistake and then I'd get instantly subbed out. And so it was one of those where he was very personable on the court because he was just like me. But I really hope some of those guys do stay around and stick around because this Kansas team, whether you like it or not, is going to be completely different next year. With we're losing KJ, Hunter, Dewan. Right now,
Yeah,
those are
man.
like our three dudes.
Well, and Zeke
And
and
Zeke.
Ryan will have another year, but Diggy will be gone. Shaq will be gone.
AJ has the potential to have another year if he wants to stick around.
My guess is he'll transfer, but
That's my guess as well. But if he stays around, he'll be there too. Floyd
another name,
is a bunch of
uh,
question marks.
Floyd's question marks. Another name people forget about is
Marco.
that I'm really high on is Elmarco Jackson.
Yeah.
Um, and yes, he didn't have the best year last year, but he still got significant minutes. He's played in the games, and it sucks that he's been hurt, but I think he'll be good next year. So if you bring these guys like Rakis, Jamari, I think that they're not one and done kind of guys where Peterson might be. He might come play 1 year and then leave.
Yeah.
But you can have Rakis, you can have Jamari, you can have Omarco kind
Those
of
are
hold
program
down.
builders.
You can have them hold down the fort for years and years. And that's what I'm most excited about. That they're not like the most talented where they're going to leave for the NBA, but they're still very, very good and have a
Yeah.
lot of potential. And that's what
Yeah.
I'm excited about with them.
I agree. Kansas fans almost forget about El Marco. Do you remember
Oh,
how high Coach Self was? And I know both of us were, and a lot of people around us. You know how high we were on El Marco coming into the year? Because he took a lot of time to adjust. You remember he started a little less than half the season last year until Furphy kind of replaced him in the lineup. And then El Marco's minutes kind of dwindled just because he wasn't really ready. But a lot of people were super, super high on El Marco coming into this year. And the injury that he had, season ending, really brutal. And I'm really excited to see what he can do next year.
but he's already back out on the court. You'll see him at like shoot arounds, like not in the game, but like they'll have practice video and he'll be shooting with the rest of the team. And I think Bill Self said that he's going to start practicing in January or maybe early February. So like he's almost there. I'm hoping he still has his explosiveness. Um, but he was a McDonald's All-American. Like that's not just something they hand out to, guys, and sometimes they miss, right? Sometimes it's okay, well, he was maybe not playing against the best high school talent or whatnot because it's so fluctuating, but
Yeah.
I'm excited for him.
Yeah. The future of Kansas basketball is in a good place. Let's not get over our heads. Maybe not the greatest loss in the world, but it was at the hands of number two Iowa State, who I think is playing like the best team in the country. So Kansas has nothing to worry about. The Jayhawks did fall in Ames 74-57, but will have a chance to get not payback, not even redemption. I guess could you could call it redemption. A
They
little
lost last week.
redemption, a little redemption on, the cross-state rivals Kansas State. Are you going to the Kansas State game?
I am not. I will not be in town, but I'll be watching it.
Okay. Yeah, Kansas State. What are your quick thoughts about K-State real quick?
Um, don't take them lightly. I know that they have been not good this year, but Jerome Tang brings them ready to go for the Kansas game. And it's
Here.
what saves his job. It's what saves his job every single year. It's the Kansas games and that like Elite Eight run they had a couple years ago.
Yeah.
Um, and I'd say this team is very susceptible to taking things for granted and not coming ready to play. And so even though it's at Allen Fieldhouse, you have to be ready to play.
It's a
And
rivalry game at
if
the end
you
of the
come
day.
out there, if you come out there and you give up a run to start and your shots aren't falling, it's going to get ugly real quickly.
Rivalry games, anything can happen. We already lost to a rival this year in Mizzou. That was on the road, but same thing applies. Rivalry games are rivalry games for a reason. And Kansas fans will tell you it's not really a rivalry. And I didn't really grow up a Jayhawk fan, so my knowledge of the rivalry is a little lacking. But at the end of the day, they have Kansas in their name, and we're gonna want to beat them. So you got to be all ready to go from the tip, and I think it's going to be an interesting game. I don't think it's going to be as pretty as we may hope.
I also did not, I mean, my some of my family went to Kansas, but I didn't grow up in Kansas or around the Jayhawks.
Hmm.
And personally, I know this is a take that not many people agree with. I find that the rivalry nowadays is bigger with Kansas State than it is Mizzou,
That's what I was
especially
thinking.
sports wise, just because they're in the Big 12, they're not in the SEC. It's same time as we play them twice a year in basketball, we play them every year in football. And I know everyone's like, oh, the historical stuff, whatnot. It's more fun to play Kansas State, and it's more intense for me to play Kansas State than to play Mizzou.
You know what? I'm gonna have to agree with you there. It means more to me. It means more to me. I want to beat the people in purple.
Yeah.
Hopefully we can get it done. Do you have a score prediction for this game, the K-State game?
Jayhawks, um, I think that they will come ready to play just because of what's happened in the past,
Yeah.
um, especially coming off a loss. So Jayhawks 63-48.
63-48. I was going to go a little higher scoring. I was going to go Kansas 78, K-State 56. Huge
22
win at
point
home.
win.
I think it's close for a little bit of the first half, and we enter halftime with like a 10-point lead, and we kind of bust the doors open in the second half. But that is my final score prediction for Kansas State. Just a reminder, the Kansas Jayhawks fell 74-57 at the hands of Iowa State yesterday. They will be back at Allen Fieldhouse on Saturday at noon. Do you know where that game will be or like
I think we're
televised at?
CBS. I think we're
CBS.
CBS.
Let me see if I can find that real quick. You might be correct. I think you might be correct. But
I think
let's
it's
see. It says CBS. You're correct right there. Kansas Jayhawks will play Kansas State at noon on Saturday on CBS. If you can't make Allen Fieldhouse in person, I will be there and I will have a preview and recap specifically for the game at Allen Fieldhouse. Charlie, I appreciate you taking the time to come talk to me today.
Thank you for having me on again. Go check out Krupski and Carson. I think I'm gonna go record an episode of that right after this. Um, Good luck to your Fighting Irish this upcoming Monday
Yeah, we
Nashville
might we
football.
might need the luck.
And yeah, bear down, go Cubs, rock chalk.
There you go. Appreciate it, Charlie.